I find it terribly arrogant that someone stands up and tries to say anything about the main speaker. I would find it beyond arrogance to try and do it for TV anchor, pastor, author, an incredible human being, to say anything more about Liz Walker than she will tell you herself. This is beyond a gift to all of us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. You want me to come up now? Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. Is this mic on? Because I have one of your mics too. Much better. I was just thrilled to come out today. And I want to thank Mrs. Huffman as well. Mrs. Huffman is the church administrator at Roxbury Presbyterian Church. If any of you know about the life of a church, it's not the pastor who runs the church. It's the administrator who runs the church. And so I left Roxbury Presbyterian in 2021, Mrs. Huffman, I think, or 2021. And she still runs my life. So that's how amazing she is. But the reason I'm excited to be here is because I want you to buy this book. Now, I'm going to be real bottom line honest with you. The reason I want you to buy this book is because the proceeds go to our community healing program, Can We Talk? And this book is written about that. So I'm here to tell you how I got from television news. You might remember me back in the day. You all are my people. You should remember me. You are my peeps. How I got from television news to ministry, and then retired from ministry, and now am a part of the leadership of I call it a mental health program. It's a trauma healing program. It's for people who have been through extreme situations and circumstances, and it started out being about trauma and violence in an urban neighborhood. But I think it's kind of morphed into trauma and grief. I think that there are a lot of people who are grieving personal loss, grieving societal loss, grieving loss in life. And so we created a program to kind of help people who are grieving, a community-based program that allows us to grieve in community. You are blessed to have this beautiful center here. So I would like to say thank you to the family that made this event possible, and thank you to the family who made this center possible, because this is amazing to have a place where you can come and form community around all kinds of issues and have good times together and maybe mourn together. I don't know all the things that you do here. I know you have yoga. I just talked about that, right? And you have good food. We talked about that. But all of that is really important. So our program was designed to help people form community, basically about our losses, but there's also joy that we have found. So I want to tell you that story. So the way I thought I'd do this is just talk to you about how I got from where I used to be to where I am now, tell you about the program, and answer your questions about any of this. I have brought these wonderful people with me who are not just there to sell books, but they're a part of our community. And they are part of the people who started this community, and maybe they'll share some of their stories with you too. So I went to television news just about out of college. Came to Boston in 1980, which seems so long ago, right? Right? It was like, that's like a lifetime ago. And I really thought that news, journalism, would be my career for all my life. I love journalism. I love to write. I love to be a witness to all the happenings in the world. I certainly believe that as a journalist, I could bring light to dark places in the world. So that was kind of my reason for doing that. And I did it. I got to Boston at a really interesting time in Boston history. 1980, the city was still reeling from busing. And so as a reporter, it was pretty tough in Boston, quite frankly. But after a few years, I think that the city and I and the region and I kind of fell in love. And I found my place. Bob Lobel. Do you remember Bob Lobel? Oh, please say you remember Bob Lobel. Because he still would ask me if I mentioned his name after all these years. Was my good buddy, the sports guy, Jack Williams. And I will tell him that you send your regards. Was my other buddy, Joyce Cole Haywick, Bruce Schwegler. This was all the team back in the day when there were only 3 television stations. And you actually had to get up and go change the channel by hand. That seems like a lifetime ago. I tell young people that was back in the day when they had telephone booths. Nobody knows what a telephone booth is. Nobody even knows how Superman had a whole life in the telephone booth. Back in the day. So that was my career. And I thought that's where I would be the rest of my life. But in 2001, I was invited to go to South Sudan with a group of Bostonians who were investigating allegations of slavery. And they were my ministers, Ray and Gloria Hammond, and they were invited by a group out of Geneva, Switzerland, and some humanitarians, because there was this controversy of whether there was slavery, modern-day slavery, in this part of the world. And so I asked my news director if we could send a crew there, and he said that we were a local news station. That's a national story, an international possibility of a story, and we're not going to send a crew. So I got my own camera, and I went with this group of about 15, I think, in all, and we were there in a time when there's a civil war. I don't know if you read, South Sudan is still in the news. Sudan is in the news. It's been in war against itself for decades. Millions have been killed, millions have died, and the war still goes on. When we got there, they were in between conflicts, and I had never been in a conflict zone. I had never seen people who had been oppressed and marginalized and treated so badly. So it was a life-changing experience for me to be there. We talked to people who told us their relatives had been taken slaves. Their villages had been burned. So it was kind of like just being on the edge of the world. Reverend Gloria, Pastor Ray, told me that I was being called by God in the city. And I thought, well, that's a pretty dramatic way to do it. If that's what God is doing, it couldn't he have just sent me a text? Well, we didn't have text back then, or written a letter or something like that. It was like, what the heck? But that's what they defined as a calling, because I was so upset by what I'd seen, and I wanted to do something about it. In retrospect, I see where that was part of the call. But at the time, it didn't make sense to me, because I was there to do their story. But we ended up being so moved and troubled by what we'd seen that we decided, Reverend Pastor Gloria decided, maybe we could do something to help these people. Now, like I said, this is a war that's been going on forever. How could we make a difference? But she wanted to do something, and she was my friend, and she was my mentor. So she and I began an 11-year journey back and forth between Boston and Sudan, and we ended up building a girls' school. And it, again, changed my life. I ended up leaving television news. My brother thought I had lost my mind. You're going to leave a job with 6 figures to go do something in another part of the world where you make no money? Are you crazy? But life had changed for me then. And I worked with this school for that many years, and then came back in 2011 thinking, okay, I have done it. If this is, I became a minister in the Methodist tradition. Back and forth, I went to the church that Ray and Gloria went to. I learned to preach. I did all those things. Now, one thing I will tell you, my father was a pastor. So I think it might be in my spiritual DNA. But I ran from that. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want any part of it. There was no money in it. I knew that because we were poor. And B, it just didn't seem like it just seemed like a lot of sacrifice at the time. But anyway, when God calls, God calls. So I became a Methodist minister, and worked for 11 years, came back from Sudan after the school was built, and I thought, that's it. Okay, now I can just let go. I've done my job. If that's what God calls you, I did it, I obeyed, I'm through. Then another friend of mine, a friend of Ray and Gloria's, his name is Herman Hamilton, pastor of Roxbury Presbyterian Church, called me one day. He was already a friend. I had met him as I became a minister, and he said, I'm going to leave my church, and I want you to come here for just a few months because they're going to be really heartbroken when I leave. So if you just step into the pulpit, I had preached there a few times, and hold the fort down until they decide what they're going to do, I'd be appreciative. And I thought, what harm could that do? Nothing could be as hard as South Sudan. And little did I know, again, that I would fall in love with the neighborhood, fall in love with the church, and the church would love me. And so after a few months, no, maybe a couple of years, I became a Presbyterian pastor. And again, life changed, and now I am located in the heart of Roxbury. What Pastor Hamilton didn't tell me was that this community, a wonderful community, 99% of the people are amazing, wonderful, hardworking people trying to take care of their lives. But there's a 1% in this neighborhood that wreaks havoc on the rest of the neighborhood. It is a story that is repeated in urban communities everywhere in the world. It's not just a black story, it's not just a poor story, it just happens. And the neighborhood was in the midst of what I would define as a gang war. And I didn't know anything about that. And if I had known that, I don't know if I would have said yes. I think I would not, because that wasn't anything I had any expertise in. I'd only been to one war, and I didn't know what that would mean in the setting that I was in. And it was horrible. We would go to church some Sundays, or I'd go to my office some days, not Sundays, and there would be shootings in the daytime outside the church. Mrs. Huffman, church administrator, and I could be in the office talking, and sirens all over the place. It was just hell. I'm going to tell you, I don't know what it was about, but it was awful. One of the families in our church had lost their son in shootings a year before I got there. His name was Corey Johnson. Corey's family was probably one of the biggest families in our church. And they were wonderful. They are a wonderful family from Trinidad, Tobago, huge family, 4 generations. But losing Corey, as you might imagine, was devastating to them. And as I kind of absorbed all that was going around in the neighborhood, I realized the grief in my own church. And this was the trauma and grief after Corey's death. Just one family of many families in Roxbury. Now, the irony of this is, as a reporter, I had gone into Roxbury many times and reported on another shooting in Roxbury. But as a reporter, I only saw the superficial part of the story. Unknown suspect, young man is dead, hasn't been identified yet, more at 11. Very rarely was there more at 11. It was almost as if this was a normalized part of the world, that you would just go into an urban neighborhood, there were shootings. When I came back as a pastor and got to know the people in the community, you got deeper into what the problem really is. And it's not just what's wrong with them, it's what's happened to them. And so, meeting Corey's family, I was invited to do a memorial service where Corey's family, a year after his death, wanted to celebrate his life. And it was a beautiful service in a place like this, and there were balloons, and there were pictures of Corey, and it was supposed to be a celebration, but underneath the celebration, you could see and sense the pain there. And so I asked Corey's mother if we could, and after hearing about other deaths, there were lots of things that were happening around the same time. I asked Corey's mother if we could do something to help others in our community who were suffering like they were suffering, and I realized they were suffering. And she was courageous in saying yes. And so together with Corey's family and some mental health experts and some other pastors, we started a program called the Corey Johnson Program for Post-Traumatic Healing. what we realized is once you do a funeral for someone who's been killed, once you do the healing service, once you bring the covered dishes, you usually move on. The family's stuck where they are. And this is not just about street violence. This is about Vietnam veterans and veterans of other wars. This is about police officers. This is about anybody who's gone through trauma. The world moves on. The family has to deal with collateral damage, many times untended, untreated. And that is just not right, and it's not fair. And so the Corey Johnson program started many different aspects of the overall program, and one was Can We Talk? Could we just invite people in on a Thursday night to come sit down in the basement of the church, like AA sorta, where you don't have to give your name, you don't have to register, you can just come in anonymously, and we will listen to you talk about your pain. And that was in 2011. We started in 2014 officially, and we've been going strong since then. The first time we opened, we put a sign on the church, a wall that says, come, talk about your pain, have a meal, share your story, we can heal together. 75 people showed up. We had a room probably about like this. It was overwhelming. I didn't think anyone would show up. I mean, who does that? But people were so full of pain and rage and anger and no place to take it. And so they were very willing to join us. We were going to meet once a month, but the community kept coming and they kept coming. And I can't tell you how moving it is to hear people. You think, God, I don't want to sit there and hear somebody talk about their worst day in their lives. But if you listen closely, you feel so much empathy and compassion for them. And if you listen closely, you begin to even kind of touch on your own pain a little bit. And it's in that the magic happens. It's somehow in that. And we brought our clinician here who can tell us some of the psychological issues, implications of this. People begin to feel a little lighter and relieved that they could release some of their pain. That's all we do. We started out once a month. It grew to once a week. Other churches started calling us, word of mouth. Churches in other areas. The first church was from South Boston. Pastor said, we'd love to talk to you about this program. They started one. Then we had other churches from Lowell and from Lynn. And now we have 20 other sites, including New York and Harlem. We have Washington, D.C. We have Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have Sarasota, Florida. And the potential is to expand, just word of mouth. It's not a franchise. It's just offering people a place and a means, a safe space, and a community to share their pain. Started off, as I said, about violence, but people come in for all kinds of things. A man joined us whose wife had died many, many years before, and he had never fully grieved her death. And he didn't know where to go to do that. Where do you go? A woman joined us whose son had been killed many years before, and she wanted to continue to grieve her son, but her family told her they had had enough, and it was time to move on. And we hear that all the time. But that doesn't make it right, and that doesn't help this woman. So we sit there and we listen, and we hear all kinds of stories. And then slowly you begin to hear people talking about how it's kind of changing for them. And so we believe, and this is my faith, that God tells us, and I know there are a lot of people of faith in this room, I can just sense it, that you have a lot of faith in this room, that we are to show compassion for those as God has showed compassion for us. We are to mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice. And that's all we're doing. So it's simple, but it's profound. It moved me so much because it started touching me on some trauma I had and was not aware of. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas during the time of the Civil Rights Movement. I lost both parents. I lost my father just when I was part of a desegregation of schools, and the impact of his death just affected everything. Then I had to go in schools where people were screaming at me and ranting at me and spitting on me, and I never got over that. And it was through this program that I began to kind of face that. Called my brother in Chicago, Illinois, who had gone through the same thing and has spent his life pretty much fighting alcoholism. Never dealt with it. He and I began to talk about things that we had gone through as children we had never dealt with. And I hope that he found some release and some healing. My brother died a few months ago, but I hope that he found some healing. I'd like to believe that. But we faced some things that we never faced. Now we're in a place, and this is not going to be a political speech, but we are in a place of great change, enormous change. And change can cause grief. Nothing is like, growing old causes grief. I'm speaking from my experience, right? When my son, every once in a while, my son will be talking to me, and he'll start, if I don't understand something, then he'll start speaking slowly. And it just pisses me off. Mom, do you understand? I'm here, boy, don't talk to me like that. All of that can be grievous to us because things aren't what they used to be. And so this organization, this community is a way to kind of just softly confront that. That's all. But the response has been enormous. It has been enormous. And so I am very beholden to the family that started this with me because it was their courage to speak about what people don't usually speak about. In our neighborhood, where there is still a lot of violence, there's a lot of silence. People are afraid. People don't want to say what happened because they don't know if they'll get in trouble or they'll piss somebody off or somebody who is the enemy might. There's lots of unsolved crimes, so people don't, they just kind of put it away. But on the inside, people are hurting. And I have grown to believe that a lot more people are hurting in this society than we care to talk about. People are hurting from loneliness, from a sense of isolation, and I'm not just talking about us old people. As a matter of fact, the Attorney General's office, this was I think a couple of years ago, reported that young people are the loneliest demographic right now than anybody else because of social media, because of just the way the world is moving so fast, and people are more isolated, even though they don't talk about it. So what do we do with that? I think we form these little communities where people talk. So that's my story. I want to introduce you to the people who helped me form this program. And I'm going to start with Deborah Fitzpatrick. Deborah's son, Corey, is kind of at the center of our community. And Deborah, I'm going to invite you to come up here. You act like you're surprised, but I told you I was going to ask you. Don't be playing me like that. This is not a cold call.
You're going to call Colleen first.
Oh, no, I'm going to call you first because your story is the center of our program. And you can sit. I don't want you to feel too put off, but I do want you to tell the story, if you will. Just share us a little bit about Corey's death. And I know that's not an easy thing to talk about, but I kind of want you to feel a little bit of what Deborah went through.
Well, hi everyone. So my name is Deborah, and I am the mother of 3 children. My son Corey, he was the oldest, and he was actually, we're a family of girls. We got the girl power. I have 3 sisters, my mom and dad who passed away in the past 5 years. And my dad was the only guy for the longest time. So when Corey came, he was like a gift, right? My mother was so excited, a boy, you would think that she had this kid. So on May 30th, 2010, I had gone out to a party that I didn't want to go to. I kept dragging my feet. It was a surprise party. I was supposed to be there maybe 9 o'clock. It was like 11. So I finally said, and it was my friend, it was him. So I finally got myself dressed and went to this party. Before I left, Corey and his half brother Justin and his friend, who was also Corey, they were laying on the floor looking at the Celtics and the Lakers finals. I have to tell you that for years I couldn't watch basketball. So I go out and I come back home, it's probably like close to 2 o'clock. That was 15 years ago, I could stay up that late, up that late. And the phone rang. And 2 o'clock in the morning, that's nothing good. So I answered it, and the person on the other end, who was Justin's mom, said to me, go to Brigham and Women because Corey's been shot. So I think, well, I had to have gotten dressed, I got in my car, and I don't know if she told me about where it happened, but I drove right by there and I stopped. And I got out and it was so dark over there. But there was, the cops with the lights and all the CSI stuff going on. And I went up to the detective and I started to describe Corey. He's tall, he had dreads, this and that. I'm telling him everything. Nobody's saying anything to me. So finally he said, ma'am, just go and park your car over there and I will have Officer Mike take you to the hospital. I think that maybe my numbness started there because I'm in the car with Officer Mike and all I'm doing is talking. I don't even know what about, just talking. Nothing from Officer Mike. Right? Nothing. So I get to the hospital and they put me in this room and they send in a social worker, a chaplain, and a nurse. I'm already numb. I don't know what's going on. I keep asking, where's my son? Nobody's talking to me. This went on for hours. And of course it's now like almost 3 o'clock in the morning. I called my family, everybody's sleeping. Nobody's answering the phone. But I did get to Reverend Hamilton. And he was there like, who? And he lived like in Woburn and we in Roxbury. He got there, who? So anyway, he gets there and I believe that he's calling people because I think that I went completely blank. I know there was people there, a bunch of people who came in, and I could see them and, they were talking. But it seems like I wasn't hearing anything. I just knew there was a bunch of people because up to this day, I cannot tell you like what happened. A lot of what happened, I should say. So, after hours, now, I recently found out that I called my 2 daughters. I did not know I did that until recently. One of my daughters was in New York, and I can't remember where the other one was. But I couldn't believe that I called them. They keep telling me that you called us. Okay. So hours later, 3 men came in the room in scrubs, blue scrubs. They sat down, and I could just see them out moving. But I think once I heard like he's gone or something, I stood up and I was like, I have to go see him. You can't just tell me that, right? So I guess they told me that he was gone and everything. So hours hours passed. I don't understand why they treat people like that. Like, you're here, you know my son is gone. I mean, the chaplain was trying to talk to me, but I wasn't hearing it. Like, no, where is he? So finally they took me to see him. And that was devastating. But all the years that passed, it was 4 years before this program started. I'm fast forwarding.
And I'm not trying to rush you. I just, want to bring Colleen in.
She stood up.
No. I just didn't want you to tell all of this.
I know her. She stood up. Okay, you want me to stop now?
I think you should stop now. Yeah.
Yeah, I can stop now.
Because I wanted to stop at the moment so that people would know about the pain.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to bring in our clinician
Okay.
who helped you immediately before we went on. Is that all right? Okay. So Colleen Sharka, you don't have to leave. You can sit, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Colleen Sharka is our clinician specialist, and she's the co-creator of the Can We Talk program and the Corey Johnson program. I just wanted to say that, because I'm trying to, now I feel like bad because I moved you. But I wanted to make sure that we got to the grieving immediately, that you went. Pastor Hamilton called you a few months after the death and asked you to come. Tell us the circumstances around that.
We love each other a lot. We're best friends now. So this would have been 2011, yeah. And Pastor Hamilton called and said, look, I don't know what to do. This is the truth. So many pastors, people in churches don't know the mental health. They're supposed to have that expertise, and they're not supposed to have it. So he said, would you come and be with this family? So I came with my mentor and friend, and we looked at each other and we said, this family loves each other so close. I've never met a more loving, close family in my life. And we ended up doing a grief group from the grandparents to the grandchildren all at one time. And that's not typically done. So we figured out how to do it because they could take us there. And we were able to do it because everything we did was spiritually integrated. Understanding that healing comes from our spirit. It's the base. And so we just did that, just by telling people, I guess I'll say about that time, just by telling people what their symptoms are, that they're normal, and that grief is something that if you have a choice, you're either gonna go through it or you're gonna try to go around it. If you go around it, it's gonna come up later. So this family just really opened their hearts and what they were going through. And so we went through that about for 8 to 10 weeks. And that was the first time that I was at the church. And then I left and ended up.
And then we called you back, and that's how we started the program. I just wanted to give the basics of how we started it and open it up. It sounds like, oh my God, this is going to be the most depressing meeting I've ever gone to. But our contention is that wholeness comes because you deal with all parts of you. Wholeness. I do not want to die and not be whole. I want to die healed. We all gonna die now. Y'all got that bulletin, right? That we are. It's just a reality. But I want to die whole. And so whether you're 23 or 83, wholeness is possible. And this is one of the ways that we believe it comes. So while it sounds, oh my gosh, the most depressing, it's really about getting to another level. And let me ask you this now, Deborah. We're going to fast forward about how would you define healing? Because you're never going to get over the death of your son. That's not what we're talking about. But how do you look at healing now?
I don't know when it happened, but I know that in this program, like maybe 3 or 4 years into the program, I could feel something happening. I mean, recently I went to a training with Colleen in New Bedford, right? New Bedford. And we were all sitting around in a circle and saying who we were, why we were there. And this woman said, I am here because, she's grieving because her son killed someone and he's now in prison for life. And, we all went around, we did our thing. The end of the meeting, she came up to me, right? And she said, I don't even think I should be talking to you. But this is how I know something is happening, because in the beginning, I didn't want to hear any of that. Don't tell me about feel sorry for somebody, I can't do it. But as she was telling me this thing, I kind of felt like her pain, because she also lost her son, he's gone. I mean, she can't go see him, but you know what I mean, he's gone. So, after she finished talking to me, we both started crying. And then I said to her, well, can I hug you? And she said, yeah. So this is how I know that things are moving along. Like Reverend said, I will never, ever get over my son's death. But I have to live in this world.
So that's our story. We'd love to talk with you. We'd love to have a conversation if you have any questions about this. And wholeness is possible for all of us. And joy is possible for all of us. Despite the losses, maybe even with the losses. So I am not here to make anyone cry or feel bad, but I just want you to know that wholeness is real. It really is. I have faced my mother died when I was born. I have faced her death. I have felt her spirit. I never knew that before. I have faced my father's death. I faced my brother's death. And I am trying to face my own death. Because you know what happens when you face your death and you make every day a good day. If I get up, it's a good day. And I can be special. I can speak to everybody. I don't hold nothing. Every once in a while, I'll hold something against the people because I'm human. But I'm trying to let go and live joyously. That's all I'm saying. And people are walking around now. I don't know if you noticed. Check it out downtown Acton. People are walking around pretty sad. A lot of people. Has nothing to do with age. How can we get out of that? How can we move forward? All we're saying is face what you fear, tell somebody about it, listen to them, and you'll be surprised at how you can move through. Anybody? Oh, I'm so glad I could just give you a hug that you had a question. I was worried about the next 30 minutes.
Do you have a group or an organization that we could visit, go once a month, or how often do you get together?
Okay, do we have a group or organization? Either of you can answer this. Just tell her what we have.
So we have it's the Social Impact Center. That is the umbrella. We have the Corey Johnson program, and we have Can We Talk, which came from it's Corey Johnson's child, right? So we meet every Thursday. We meet 2 Thursdays in person, 2 on Zoom. I'll see you.
And over here, when you buy the books, there's a little invitation to the Corey Johnson program. We meet, and let me tell you how it works when you come into, because why don't you tell them how it works? When you come into a Can We Talk night.
So coming in, the great news is no one has to know you're coming. That is really powerful, right? You don't have to, no one's gonna, take your card, try to take a history, nothing. You just come in, you're neighbors. You come in, you have a meal. So think about that, being able to have a meal, you're already connecting with people. And after the meal, we actually put the chairs exactly like yours. This is a Can We Talk. And I loved my favorite days when Reverend Liz was there and she would open the space and we would have a saxophone player play because we have artists. So you'll either see a dance or someone will sing or there'll be an instrument. And then Miss Deborah will come and read the guidelines and they're very important. They're sacred because they've kept the space safe for almost 11 years now. And basically it's this, open mic. And you'd think, who's gonna come up and tell, their sad story? But I realized very early on, people are self-selecting to come. You're gonna come knowing, can we talk about your pain? You're not gonna come if you don't wanna hear it, or you might not wanna share, or you might wanna share. There are many people that never share, there's not enough time for everybody. But over the years, sometimes a lot of people do, many people share often, each time. But 3 to 5 minutes, you can say a lot. So we'll hear something about what you heard Deborah talk about. We might hear about unemployment or betrayal or bullying as a child. But we hear about healing. We hear about the healing too. And then we close with the artist and a little sort of ritual bringing things together. So like Deborah said, you could come to County Talk, bring a friend and come. You will find I've never been in a more loving church than Roxbury Presbyterian Church. And this is the church's program of desire to help the community, but it's not a religious program. You can come in any way you identify. Everyone is welcome. And you will feel loved and you will feel welcome. And just listening is participating. That's what we say. No one's observing. And if the first time you want to do it on that card, you'll see the website, go and come zoom in. This is the great thing. Deborah is the facilitator for the Zooms on Roxbury Presbyterian, and it's wonderful.
And I think as strong as the grief is the love.
Oh, so true. I mean, the love, I can't even describe it.
Yeah, it's
the love
just,
has changed my life.
yeah, just people willing to listen to each other, that's all. That's really all.
There's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. Like, we just sit there and listen. Listen, we don't try to fix anybody or, we're not saying anything, we're just with you.
And the reason behind that is because if the minute someone tries to help you, even though their heart's in the right place, you don't have any idea that what you're saying might trigger them more, and it sort of changes everything. But the connecting in the community is eating and after we're talking, and just responding by we're experiencing a lot just by you listening here.
I'm wondering, do you have a mental health professional at each of these get-togethers? I'm wondering what happens if someone starts to unravel.
Good question. What happens if someone starts to unravel, and do we have a mental health professional at each of these gatherings?
So it's important to first say, and if you see the website, you'll see this is peer-led. So people who are grieving people themselves are trained in how to do this, to accompany people, to really accompany people. And so if you're having a county talk and someone does start to cry, that's in our society, that means, oh dear, right? We're scared. And that's normal to feel that way. But our community companions, that's what we call them, come over with tissues and water, and they're with you while you cry. And the mental health person is needed there just in case. The first night we did it with that 75 people, I had 6 people there. I didn't know. I assumed the same thing. But the self-selection means that people are ready, and wailing, crying, that's part of being in community. We need to grieve. So we're very used to that. And people get used to it themselves who come. And if someone, I think twice in 11 years, I felt like someone, needed to leave the room and have someone like myself go with them and talk with them. And we can do that. So there's always someone who's trained on that level there just in case.
I wanted to tell him about one time early on, a woman came in and she told the story of her son and his bout with mental illness. And we protect all stories and all people's identity. So even though I'm telling you this, I'm not telling you who it was or the specifics. And in her telling the story, she began to wail. And I'm not a wailing type person, so I had no idea what to do. And I mean, this woman was really wailing. She was deep in her pain in this group. And so I was for a minute, or maybe longer than that, I was embarrassed, just like anybody would be, because you don't know what to do. How do I fix this? But over time, and this is how I believe God speaks to me, it was just be quiet, let her wail. And people in the audience started crying with her a little bit. And then as she went on, and she did go on for a while, I went and stood next to her, and I put my hand on her back, just, gently, and I whispered in her ear, we can go somewhere else if you want, and she did. And so we went away, and she collected herself, and that was the only time. But I think that was even a learning for me, because you know, we're uncomfortable with our emotions. In this culture, we just are. We've never been able to do that. And you go to other cultures or you go back in history, we all wail together. That's how we got through things. And so this was a learning for me that night. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
I'm hearing a lot about grief and sorrow. I have a very close friend who just lost her husband, a few months ago. And she's so filled with anger because he went swimming by himself and it was an accidental drowning. And she just, and I don't know what to say to her. She says, why did he do this? How could he have done this to me? How could he be left me? And it's anger, severe anger.
Yes, that's totally normal, right? But it's so uncomfortable. And this, I'm gonna assume that for you, personally, this is hard, right? And you wonder what to do to help. And you know what I'm convinced after watching this for 11 years, being present, so involved in it, I think because of that discomfort that Liz is talking about, we either can't stand it or we're gonna leave, or we have to fix it. There's no in between. And we've learned our program is the in-between place. And from a Christian perspective, you think of Good Friday, you think of Easter, nobody talks about Saturday in between. We're the Saturday people. Or on caterpillar or butterfly. No one thinks of the butterfly forming in the chrysalis. That's all that's happening is in the chrysalis. It's really where we need to learn to live. That's where vulnerability, and if anyone loves Brene Brown, that's her whole point, is there's excruciating vulnerability, is also the birthplace of better love, belonging, and connection. That's our program. So if you want to be in a Saturday type of place or in the middle, liminal space, that's what we need to do with people. And so for your friend, we've learned 99% of it is just being present. Just being present. And we've learned it's 3 Ps. Safe place. So be a safe place for them. Be an abiding presence. You're not going away. And be part of the process, which we really know means a mysterious way in which someone will find their own way. And as Deborah said, you're never getting over it, but you learn to live with it and integrate it. So standing it and being there.
And there's no specific time that it's going to say in 6 months, in 8 weeks. One of the reasons we think our little program works better than some, not better, but equally well as some private therapist is because you usually have limits on how long as a therapist you stay with someone. And it may take your friend years. It may take a lifetime. She may never, but just to be a presence. Let me just tell you about a couple of the things people who have come in. We had a young man come in early. When we started this program, I really wanted it to be for young people because of Corey's death and because of all the violence in the community. But young people rarely ever came. But one time a young man came in. He sat in the back, then he came to the front, and then he got up to speak. And he, to me, looked like a young man who had lived a tough life. He had a hoodie. He had the look to me. And I still don't know who he was, but he got up and he said he had done some things. And he didn't give us his name, and we didn't want it. And he just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And then he left. And I thought, oh my God, let's grab this kid and we can change his life. We can fix him. We didn't fix him, but think maybe that was the biggest thing he'd ever done, to face up to whatever it is he'd done. So it happens in all kinds of ways. We had a young woman who came in who told us that she had had an abortion. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, this is not going to go well, because the church people are going to jump up and tell her you shouldn't have done that and judge her and all that. And nobody said a word. And afterwards, and she said she had never told her family. And she felt like she wanted to tell somebody. She wasn't apologizing, she said. I remember most of what she said. She just wanted to tell somebody. She was one of the students at one of the colleges. And after the event was over, people just came up and hugged her. And it was just beautiful to watch people just accept her as she was. So that's all. It's those kinds of things that happen. Anyone else?
This is a question for any of you. I actually work at a school of theology in Boston, and I noticed the mention about mental health issues. And what would you advise professors teaching the next generation of chaplains and pastors to be more equipped than they may be now, depending on the institution that they're in.
Wow, that's a great question, and it's one that we're dealing with now. Can I do a plug, and then I'll turn it over to you? We have been approached by Howard University psychology and theology department to work with them with their young people with our program and the model and the concepts behind it. We base a lot of what we do on Shelley Rambo from Boston University. You know her?
I work at BU.
Okay, so so you were a plant, right? But I think that's exactly where we'd like to go. We teach a course at Roxbury Community College because so many people want this kind of healing.
First of all, we gotta say this. Liz and I are gonna have our second time of teaching. You gotta say this bigger. It's amazing.
One coming up.
Yeah, it's called Understanding Collective Trauma. We have flyers that we'll put out. And this is gonna be our second time co-teaching it this fall. And it's a 8-week thing, and it's for the community. It's part of their workforce development program. It's $100. And it's really our hope, and the first time we did it, this happened. Folks on the front line, and this connects with the school, what I'm gonna say to your question. Everyone who's there, whether it's a teacher, professor, police, nobody teaches them about trauma. And trauma's just PTSD if you were in a war. I still got doctors telling me that. Ain't true. It's under everything, because it's wounds. However someone's wounds are, right? So if we need frontline people, including teachers and professors, to understand what it is. So getting educated to understand it's what happened to someone, not what's wrong with them. That's number one. That will change everything. And then number two, working on our own stuff, right? And then just being more real and authentic and being ready to be vulnerable. The more we're ready to be vulnerable with the students, and especially in a theology and a chaplaincy program. I used to have folks, I'm also a spiritual director, and I used to have a lot of them come, and they were so wounded by their chaplaincy programs, and the thing is that because everybody wants, part of it's everybody wants to think they have it all together. And I remember when I finally got to go and be in my internship, I started wailing in front of, you didn't even know this, in front of Arvel, when she was thinking of taking me in, and Arvel's gonna be my supervisor. And I said, I shouldn't be here, I got problems, I haven't got it all together, why can't I do this? And I just started crying because I wanted to do it so much. She said, you're hired. Because that's the point. If you don't start from your own pain and realize we're all equals in it, that's what this program is. Nobody's got it all together. And the folks who stand there doing that, and then the last thing I'll say as a mother of a child that I fought her not to have so much homework from day one in the Boston Public Schools on up because it's traumatizing children. The stress level on students is absolutely torturous to this day. So all those are my comments, obviously from a lot of my days as a mom. I wanted to say that, but I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and if any of this helps.
I just wanted to introduce one more person, actually two more people, but I'm gonna introduce one right now. I've teased her a lot today, so I'm demanding that you come forward. Shondell Davis is one of our program. I call her a leader because she goes out into the community and does extraordinary things in the community. But one of the things I wanted, did you not know I was gonna call on you? Did you not tell her? I'm calling everybody. I'm sorry, don't get mad at me. But I wanted her to tell a little bit. One of the things that stuck in my head is that when you went to traditional help, having lost your son to violence, you got something that you had bargained for. Can you tell us about that psychiatrist?
Yes. So, good afternoon, everyone. I too, like Deborah, got that phone call one day that my son had been murdered and went through the same sort of process, but we all have different processes, even though it's the same act. And I found myself not aligned with the 7 steps of grief. You know how they have the 7 steps of grief that you're supposed to go through? Somebody wrote it up. Anger, just the different ones, denial and all that. I found myself way off track. I was not experiencing those things. I was experiencing some other things. And it took me a while to get an appointment with a psychiatrist. Back then, it was a lot of waiting lists. Nobody was available. And when I did get an appointment, it was a young psychiatrist that I went in and talked to. And when I left there, I shared everything that I went through, not knowing, like there's no book or no guide that tells you how to grieve your child. And so when I told her the things I was experiencing, when I left there, I felt so happy because I felt like I was going crazy. I didn't understand what was happening to me. And when I left there, I was like excited. I felt lighter that it was out and that I had told somebody and that for me to walk out the door, I'm not crazy. But when I got home, the police was at my house and they were asking me about my younger daughter. Where was she at the time? And at that point, I was then sectioned. And by that happening, really silenced me for years that I started using substances and drinking a lot because I never knew what I said to this person that she sectioned me. Like I really felt like if she would have told me like what you just said was worried, I'm concerned about that, can we do a safety plan, can we walk down to the ER, something like that, but she didn't. So at that time I was sectioned. Section 35 means that when you have said, I believe that you're gonna harm somebody or harm yourself, which those were not in my category, then you are the psychiatrist or licensed professional can summons you and you have to go into like a psychiatric or do like an intake to find out where you are, but you're actually sectioned. So you're going in front of a judge, they're telling you like you're gonna be admitted to a place. And then at the same time they went to my daughter's school, which was in Wheeling, and picked up my daughter. But the school really knew what was going on, they knew the family, and they stepped in and intervened and made sure that my daughter was safe. As the school teacher took my daughter home. So that was my experience, and by that happening to me, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, it just really shut my voice down. And that's that piece, and so it's just not a good experience for me. Oh, after that I found one place that was out in, it's over there by, Attleboro. I started going to the shrine, and it was this pamphlet, and I started to go to this group out there by a sister. It was terrible, like getting out there. It was only once a month, and I remember always arriving late. The sister would leave something in the door so that when we got there, my friend would come with me. And after that, I heard about the program in the community. I found the flyer, and I went to the program. I was scared. I was really scared, but I knew that I was at a place that I needed help. I couldn't do this on my own. The family wasn't equipped to help me. Friends weren't equipped to help me, but I knew I needed professional help. And I remember going into the church. I remember being really scared. I remember writing down everything I said. I remember looking at the doors, like how to get out. And I had my friend with me. And I said to my friend, I need you to keep eyes. I need you to be here with me. And I shared. And I was so surprised about how I felt that night. I didn't get excited really fast. I went home and waited till the next day when I was home safely. And I just felt so much relief. And so I continued with the program and it never stopped.
And Shondell now is our community trauma healing specialist. She goes out into the community after, you can have a seat too if they have other questions. She goes out into the community and helps people who have gone through different traumatic situations. So there are many people in our world who don't have the resources, so that if you end up in a psychiatrist's office, you're ending up in the system, and the system has its regulations, which it has to have, but you might not need the system. You might not need that. You might just need somebody to listen to you. So, this is why this program works for that. But we think it also works for everybody else, too. But I did want to leave you on a couple of things I've learned from this that I think has made me a more responsive person in the world. And maybe each of us can give a little bit of things that we've learned that we can take out into the world. And I think I'm a better listener now. I have always tried to fix, my son is 30, pretty soon my son will be older than I am. He's 37, he's married, he's got his own life, and I'm still trying to fix him. And through this program, I realized I can't fix him. It's not my responsibility that he's a man, he's a grown man. I have learned to listen more with my heart to my son. And I think that's made me slightly better, and I've learned that through this program. We thank you so much for listening to us. And that's our story. And we think this is something that can work anywhere with anybody. And if nothing else, just think about the listening the next time that person wants to share something with you. So thank you very much for having us, and God bless you.